I never imagined the heartbreaking truth behind SeaWorld's collapse would shake my beliefs forever. The day everything turned upside down felt surreal, like I was caught in a nightmare. I remember the loud sirens, the frantic cries of employees, and the blue waves crashing against the walls, like nature was protesting against everything we had done. I stood there, breath shallow, my heart racing as I observed the chaos unfold around me. The scent of saltwater mixed with fear filled the air, a potent reminder of the life hidden beneath the surface. I had spent countless days watching the dolphins leap and the whales dance, believing I was witnessing pure joy. But that day, I saw the cracks in the illusion. A news report proclaimed, "This is not just an accident, it's a reckoning." Those words thudded in my chest. The smiles of families quickly turned to expressions of shock and disbelief. Children cried. Parents held them close, whispering reassurances they didn't believe that I had always adored the ocean, its mysteries pulling me in like a dark current. But the more I learned about SeaWorld's practices, the more I felt my heart clench. The animals were never meant to live in confined spaces, to entertain humans for a fleeting thrill. My best friend, Marley, had been an intern there. Her eyes once sparkled with excitement, but they now held a deep sadness, a knowing that made me shudder. She confided in me about the grueling schedules, the unnoticed injuries, and the cries of creatures silenced by the walls surrounding them. I felt my stomach twist that I wanted to shield her, to shake her and bring her back to her happier days. But she had opened my eyes to a truth I couldn't unsee, and the revelation gnawed at me. I wanted to fight, to expose what they had kept hidden, but fear clawed at my throat. What if I was wrong? What if it was all too complicated, too messy? The swirling uncertainty made my head spin. Then, just as I thought I could take no more, a deafening crash echoed like thunder. The crowd gasped collectively. A massive wave surged over the edge of the pool, and I watched in horror as people scrambled to escape. I felt paralyzed for a moment, my mind racing with thoughts of survival over everything I thought I believed in. Did I think this was justice? Was I witnessing the payback for years of negligence? My body trembled as I stumbled back, clutching the railing. As the wave settled, silence slapped the crowd like a cold wind. But it wasn't the end, it was only the beginning of questions that now haunted me. What if this collapse was only a glimpse of a deeper conspiracy? What if there was more to the truth than anyone dared to acknowledge? As I caught Marley's eye, I saw the same uncertainty reflecting back at me, and it filled me with dread. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The following days passed in a haze, the aftermath of the collapse casting a shadow over everything I did. I moved through life as if I were merely a ghost, watching others go about their routines. The usual sounds of the ocean, the gentle lap of waves, the calls of seagulls felt like a distant memory, as if even nature mourned. Marley and I met frequently, poring over reports that flooded the newspapers, discussing leaked documents and witness testimonies that painted a picture far darker than we had ever imagined. One rainy afternoon, we sat on her apartment floor amidst a sea of crumpled papers and empty coffee cups. The weight of our discoveries pressed down on me, and I found it hard to breathe. Marley looked at me, her voice small and fragile. What are we really going to do about this? I don't know, I whispered. The thought of going public terrified me. The fear of backlash loomed like a dark cloud, threatening to rain down consequences I wasn't sure I could handle. But each time I closed my eyes, the images of those trapped animals flickered across my mind, a glaring reminder that silence was complicity. A slight knock at the door snapped me back to reality. I opened it to find an older woman with silver hair, her hands trembling as she clutched a tattered envelope to her chest. "Are you Marley?" she asked, her voice quivering. Marley stepped forward, surprise washing over her features. "Yes, I am." "What's wrong? I'm sorry to intrude, but I worked there too, many years ago," she replied, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I thought it was just me, carrying the burden of what I witnessed. But now I realize it's bigger than any one of us." She handed Marley the envelope. "I was afraid, scared of the repercussions, but I can't just stand by anymore." Marley opened the envelope, revealing faded photographs of crowded enclosures, sick animals, and disheveled staff working tirelessly in exhausting conditions. "Oh my God," she breathed, the color draining from her face. These images were stark, unsettling truths I had long suspected but never had proof of. My heart raced as I looked over Marley's shoulder. "Do you know who took these?" I asked the woman. "Some of them were from a friend," she said, her voice breaking. "But some I captured myself. I wanted it to stop then, but the fear held me back. I hoped this place would change, that they would uphold the promises they made to their animals. But I can't stay silent." Marley carefully placed the photos on the floor, and I watched the woman, recognition dawning. "You're the one from the documentary, aren't you? The one who spoke out against the treatment of trainers?" The woman nodded, her gaze filled with a mixture of pride and regret. "I thought by leaving, I would make a difference. I hoped others would join me. But like you too, fear kept them quiet. We must speak out together. We can gather the evidence, connect with others." The sudden camaraderie ignited hope within me. Perhaps we were not alone in this fight, after all. A sense of purpose stirred in my chest. "We need to go public," I said slowly, feeling the words resonate within the room. "Not just for the sea creatures, but for everyone who's been silenced." But just as the warmth of our resolve began to settle, a loud crash from the window shattered the moment. Startled, we turned to see a shadowy figure standing outside our apartment. My stomach twisted in fear as the man raised a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. We clung to each other, hearts racing, eyes wide. "Who is that?" Marley whispered, trembling. The moment felt like a scene cut straight from a horror movie, the line between friend and foe blurring in an instant. I didn't know if we were being watched, if the man was friend or foe, but my heart raced with one chilling thought: this fight for truth wouldn't come without a cost. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting our world in darkness, I felt the weight of what lay ahead. The truth was awakening, but the danger was real, and the uncertain road ahead was fraught with peril. The air was thick with tension as we huddled in the apartment, the shadows stretching menacingly around us. I squinted through the window at the figure, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum, the echoes of fear reverberating in my veins. The silhouette shifted, and I could see he was looking right at us, his face obscured by the dim light. "Do you think he knows?" Marley whispered, her voice trembling. I could hardly respond, because the truth was I didn't know if we were on the verge of exposure or danger. A sudden gust of wind rattled the window, and I felt the heavy weight of our revelations pressing down on me once more. Everything was at stake, and yet, the fear of doing nothing felt even more paralyzing. The woman from earlier, her face pale and drawn, took a cautious step forward, instinctively moving to shield us. "Stay quiet," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. "He might be watching, but we can't show fear." Marley and I exchanged frantic glances, our breath hitching in our throats. It was hard to believe that just moments before, hope had flickered to life in our hearts. Now, it felt like a fragile flame on the verge of being snuffed out. There came another loud thump, and the figure's silhouette shifted, his posture tensing as he stared straight at us, pushing against the glass, as if trying to listen more closely. It was a reminder of how fragile our safety had become, how easily everything could be stripped away. "Who are you?" I shouted, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. The figure froze, and for a moment, the world stood still. But my bravado wavered as he turned slightly, revealing a glimpse of his face, a hardened expression against a backdrop of determination. Something clicked in my mind, a chilling recognition that rooted me to the spot. "I'm not your enemy," he said, his voice a gravelly whisper that danced through the cracks in the glass. "I'm here to help." "Help?" Marley echoed, incredulity lacing her tone. Help how? By scaring us half to death. He stepped closer, and the faint light illuminated his features. It was Sam, a former trainer rumored to have left the facility under mysterious circumstances. I had read about him in one of Marley's old reports, a note buried deep in the details of past investigations. What do you want? I demanded, my pulse racing as the memory returned. What do you want from us? Listen, he urged, glancing around as if expecting shadows to creep closer and consume him. I've been watching. The danger is real, and you're not safe. They know now, and they won't stop until you're silenced. Fear mingled with our desperation, as the weight of his words settled in our minds. But we can't stay silent. Marley exclaimed. We have to find a way to expose the truth. That I want to help you, but you need to understand, he said, lowering his voice. Going public changes everything. They'll come after you. You're not just putting yourself at risk, you're putting everyone you love in danger too. That I felt a chill grip my heart, as the names of the ones I loved floated through my mind. Me family, my friends, everyone I held dear. What do you want us to do? I whispered, my strength waning under the weight of his warning. There's a meeting tonight. A group of us are gathering to discuss the next steps. We're planning to take evidence to the authorities, but I want you to be careful. Trust is hard to come by now, and I can't make promises for anyone else. A flicker of hope ignited in my chest once more, mixed heavily with trepidation. This was our chance, the opportunity we needed to gather support not just for ourselves but for all those who suffered silently. A new road stretched ahead, yet the darker side loomed close behind, ready to catch up. Marley and I lingered on that precipice of decision, our fates entwined with Sam's. Just as we began to weigh our options, a crackling sound erupted from my phone. A message flashing across the screen set our hearts into a frenzy. They know you're looking into this, it read, dripping with malice. You have one chance to back off, or you'll regret it. Panic flooded through me, the fear a suffocating fog that made it hard to breathe. I felt broken, defeated, and yet I understood, there was no turning back now. This journey, this fight for the truth had begun to intertwine itself with something much deeper, something beyond just the battle against corruption. It was about standing up against the darkness, about facing fears that had threatened to steal away our voices. But as dread washed over me, an unsettling realization dawned. The stakes were higher than we could have ever anticipated, and the truth we sought to expose was more dangerous than we knew. I began to wonder if we were equipped to confront what lay ahead, or if we were merely moving toward our own undoing. The fear settled in my bones, but beneath it, a flicker of determination still burned. We had to uncover this truth no matter the cost, even any cost. Perhaps it was reckless, but then again, sometimes hope is born from places of desperation. And then, just as a deep sense of unease settled in my stomach, Marley's phone buzzed to life, illuminating her face with its glow. She read the message, her eyes narrowing. It's from a different number. They know everything. Before she could finish, Sam took a step backward into the shadows, fear snowballing in his eyes as he grasped the weight of the situation. You need to make your choice now before it's too late. In that moment of darkness, standing together on the brink of the unknown, I felt the tides of fate shifting. But we were unprepared for the storm that awaited. Yuzzle that remained was the shattered echo of our once sure resolve, looming large against the uncertainty of the choices yet to be made. The moments that followed Sam's unsettling revelation hung in the air, thick with uncertainty. Marley and I exchanged glances, each of us wrestling with the tumult of emotion swirling within. I felt the world tightening around us, the shadows creeping closer, as if waiting for us to make our next move. That I can't believe this is happening, Marley whispered, her voice strained. It's like something out of a bad movie. Except it's not a movie, I replied, trying to hold on to a semblance of clarity. This is real, and we have to choose what to do next. The gravity of the decision pressed down on us, threatening to suffocate the flicker of hope we had managed to sustain. I was acutely aware of the weight of our lives resting in the balance. Every choice carried the potential to change everything that we could. Run, I suggested, fear pushing against reason. We could disappear. Run. Marley cut in, her disbelief palpable. And do what? Live in hiding? Leave our loved ones behind? This isn't just about us anymore. That I had thought about our families too, the faces of those we cared for piercing through the fog of panic. The idea of leaving them unprotected, vulnerable to whatever storm was brewing, twisted my stomach. But before I could respond, Sam's eyes darkened, and he leaned closer. You need to understand their reach goes farther than you think. People are already disappearing, and if you want to uncover the truth, you have to be all in. Then we go to this meeting, Marley declared with surprising resolve, her voice steadying against the rising tide of fear. For everyone who can't stand up for themselves, that I nodded, the decision solidifying into a fragile but steadfast commitment. We gather evidence and we fight back. Together that I felt a small surge of defiance burning through the fear. But as the choice crystallized in my mind, a new, darker question emerged: how could we protect the ones we loved while plunging headfirst into danger? Sam nodded gravely, as if reading my thoughts. Meet me at the old clock tower at midnight. It's a safe place to talk further and organize. Don't be late, and don't tell anyone. As he faded into the darkness, the weight of impending action settled heavily on my shoulders. I knew I should feel empowered, emboldened even, but a disquieting dread had crept into my heart, a sense that we were stepping into a web of deceit far more complex than we understood. The hours dragged on, the apartment feeling like a pressure cooker of tension. As Marley paced the small room, my mind raced with fragments of all we had uncovered, piecing together the puzzle of corruption entwined with SeaWorld's downfall. It was unreal, and yet a truth all too tangible as I recalled the devastating reports and testimonials. Do you think we can actually make a difference? Marley stopped abruptly, her question hanging heavy in the air. Maybe, I replied, though doubt gnawed at me. But it'll take everything we have to expose this. We have to be prepared for what comes next. She sat down beside me, her eyes searching mine. I just want to make sure we do this for the right reasons. For the animals, yes, but also for the people, for those who can't fight back. Everyone deserves a voice. Her fierce compassion wrapped around me like a comforting blanket against the night's chill, but there was no denying the fear that thrummed beneath our resolve. Just then, a soft knock echoed through the door, making us jump. Who is it? Marley called out, the tension palpable. It's me, a familiar voice replied. It was Jess, our friend from college. She was a fierce advocate for animal rights, and I felt a flicker of relief mixed with anxiety at her unexpected arrival. What are you doing here, Jess? I asked, opening the door hesitantly. The moment she stepped inside, her face was a mix of determination and worry. I got your text earlier. I thought I could help. You're going to need all the support you can get. Just as gratitude blossomed in my chest, fear clawed at my throat. What if she was jeopardizing her safety by being here? What if our struggles entangled her in the chaos? Jess, you shouldn't be here, I cautioned. It's dangerous. We don't want to put you in harm's way. She tilted her chin defiantly, eyes blazing. I'm in this too. I've seen the damage firsthand. I won't stand by while you risk everything alone. Marley exchanged a knowing glance with me, a mix of gratitude and fear swirling in her expression. In that moment of vulnerability, I understood something profoundly important. Standing together felt both like salvation and recklessness. But then Jess' phone buzzed, and the room fell into a charged silence as she read the message. Her face paled, and my heart sank at the familiar, cold dread that settled in the pit of my stomach. It's from an unknown number, she stammered. They said they're coming for us. They know we're planning something. We have to leave now. Panic surged through the small space, and I felt the walls closing in again, the fear drowning out that fragile spark of hope. We were running out of time, and the price of the truth might cost more than any of us had prepared to pay. Just as we were collecting our scattered thoughts and belongings, Marley's phone buzzed again, and she turned ghost white. It's from my mom. She's in the hospital, she whispered, her voice trembling, eyes wide with panic. Is she okay? I rushed out, my heart sinking anew. She doesn't know where I am, Marley said, tears glistening in her eyes. What if they hurt her? What if? Jess reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly, but the gravity of our situation loomed over us all. In that moment of despair, I thought about how intertwined our fight for the truth now was with the lives of those we cherished. We were no longer just seeking answers, we were entangled in a battle against an unseen force that threatened to tear everything apart. As fear coiled around us, the clock ticked towards midnight, each second louder than the last. We were left standing at the edge of uncertainty, and the realization hit hard: some truths, once unearthed, could never be buried again. As the night deepened into an unyielding shroud, I knew one thing: we had just crossed a line, and there was no turning back. The midnight hour approached with a haunting urgency, the weight of what lay ahead pressing heavily upon us. I glanced at Marley, her eyes brimming with a mixture of fear and defiance, a silent promise binding us together. Jess stood at her side, the fire in her spirit evident even as shadows clouded our surroundings. "We can't go to the hospital, it's too risky," I hesitated, my mind racing with possibilities. "We need to get to the clock tower first and figure out a plan that really all we're going to do." Marley snapped, panic breaking her resolve. "What if they hurt her? We could lose her." The thought electrified my bloodstream with dread, but I couldn't let emotion cloud my judgment. "We have to trust she's safe. If we're not careful, we could put everyone in danger." "Maybe that's the point," Jess interjected, her voice steady despite the fear that had crept into the corners of her eyes. "They want to scare us, to keep us scrambling. If we stay here, we're just sitting ducks waiting to be found." I nodded, feeling the mounting urgency wrapping its tendrils around my heart. "Well, figure it out, but we have to stick together." With one last glance towards the door, I steeled myself and led the way, pushing down the gnawing feeling of dread that thudded in my chest. We slipped out into the night, the cool air washing over us like a reprieve. As we made our way through the familiar back streets, thoughts of Marley's mother weighed heavily on my mind. What if she was already in trouble? The guilt that clung to me was suffocating, each step forward half-hearted at best. I was torn between fear for my own life and the urgent desire to protect those who mattered most. With the old clock tower coming into view, I felt a flicker of hope. Though the darkness was foreboding, the ethereal outline of the structure felt like a beacon guiding us through the storm. As we approached the tower, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I held up a hand to motion for silence, and Jess and Marley nodded, their expressions shifting from resolve to trepidation. "Stay close," I whispered, aware of the fading light that offered scant protection. As we stepped through the arching entrance, a soft scuff echoed from within, sending chills down my spine. "Sam!" I called out, my voice barely louder than a breath. The shadows danced against the stone walls as Sam stepped from behind a pillar, his face appearing more drawn than before. Anxiety flickered in his eyes. "You made it. But we don't have much time. They're already looking for you." "What do you mean?" Marley gasped, pressing forward. "They know about this meeting, not just this meeting. They know about all of you," he said gravely, the weight of his words wrapping around us like chains. "It's bigger than we thought. They've got eyes everywhere." I felt a chill run down my spine as my mind reeled. "Who are they?" Sam hesitated, glancing behind him as if expecting shadows to creep out of the darkness. "I wish I knew. But we can't stay here. I have a contact who's been gathering intel. We need to move." An unspoken fear hung thick in the air, but we nodded, stepping deeper into the tower. The flickering light from Sam's phone barely illuminated the paths before us. Each step felt pregnant with unvoiced questions and newfound dread. "Do you really believe we can make a difference?" Jess asked, her voice cracking just above a whisper. "I have to believe it," Sam replied, urgency leaking into his tone. "It's the only way." As we reached an ancient staircase spiraling down into the depths of the tower, my heart raced. Each creak of wood beneath our feet echoed my rising anxiety, but I sensed a flicker of determination mingling with fear, a willingness to embrace whatever truth lay ahead. "I just want to end this," Marley whispered, as if reading my thoughts. For my mom, for the others, for all of them, the walls of the old tower seemed to close in, shadows melding into unease. Just as we reached the bottom step, Sam suddenly halted and turned, his expression grave. "Wait. Before we go, there's something I have to show you." A sense of trepidation clawed at me, but I nodded, curiosity edging close to dread. He pulled out a battered folder from his backpack, its edges frayed and weathered as if it had traveled through darkness itself. "Documents," he began, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Evidence of the corruption. Some of it leads back further than we feared. Trust me, this could change everything." As he flipped through the pages, the words began to paint a picture, unraveling conspiracies I could hardly comprehend. My heart raced as the sheet slipped past, revealing incriminating images and names that fell like stones into the well of my intuition, but as I scanned a particular page, my breath caught in my throat. There, among the names, was one I never expected to see, my own father. Panic surged through me, the fragile bonds of trust one held shattering like glass under an overwhelming weight. "No, it can't be," I spluttered, fingers trembling over the page as bile rose in my throat. "What is this? Why is he involved?" Marley took a step closer, concern etched across her features. "Is it really him?" "We don't know the whole story yet. He's not who I thought he was," I whispered, my world tilting dangerously beneath me. The stakes had been raised, and everything had changed in an instant. The fight was no longer just for the animals or the people left vulnerable, it was personal, and the uncertainty of truth felt like a dagger in my gut, and then, without warning, the low rumble of footsteps echoed above us, growing louder closer. "They know we're here," Sam whispered urgently, panic igniting in his eyes. Time slowed as we stood at the precipice of chaos, uncertainty clouding our choices. In that moment, I realized we had crossed an invisible line, and the depths of the truth were far darker than I had ever imagined. The clock had just struck midnight, and as I stared at my father's name on a page filled with darkness and lies, I understood that our fight had only just begun. The air was thick with the weight of the revelation, and I could almost feel the darkness coiling around us like a predator stalking its prey. The footsteps grew louder, shattering the fragile echo of my thoughts, and a sense of palpable urgency surged through the group. "Run!" Sam shouted, his voice cutting through the panic that threatened to consume us. Without a second thought, we dashed toward the narrow hallway leading deeper into the tower. The flickering light from his phone illuminated barely a few feet in front of us, but we pushed onward, each heartbeat pounding a desperate rhythm of fear and resolve. As we wound our way through the maze of stone, dread clung to me, felt it in the depths of my being. My father. The very name that had once filled me with warmth now lay heavy on my heart, tainted with betrayals I had yet to unpack. What did this really mean? "Over here." Sam's voice echoed from ahead, drawing us into a dark alcove hidden behind rusted machinery and ancient wooden beams. We huddled together into the shadows, the remnants of the old world enveloping us, trying to drown out the reality crashing around me. The footsteps paused above, and I could feel the tension weaving itself into the very fabric of the air we shared. Each breath felt desperate, as if I were holding on to the last thread of sanity. "They won't find us here," Sam assured us, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "Do you really believe that?" I snapped, frustration spilling over. "They know we're involved now. They know about my dad." Marley grasped onto my arm, her grip steadfast. "Whatever he's done, it doesn't mean you're like him. You're not responsible for his choices." Her eyes shimmered with understanding, a kindness amid the storm swirling within me. Yet, how could I not feel complicit? The very fabric of my existence was tied to a man who had chosen silence over truth. What would it mean for Marley, for Jess, to know that my blood could boil corruption? "Well, figure this out," Jess said, her voice quivering but resolute. "But we need to stay focused. Right now, we have to keep each other safe." In that moment, as we crouched in the suffocating silence, the power of camaraderie wrapped around us, dimming the shadows of doubt. "Together," I whispered, more to myself than to them, clinging to the notion that our bonds could withstand the hurricane of secrets swirling outside. Just then, a voice rang through the darkened stone corridor, low and ominous. "I know you're down there. You can't hide from what you've become." The voice slithered through the darkness, taunting, echoing off the walls like a ghost that had come to claim its own. "Who is that?" Marley whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "I can't tell." I trembled, feeling the familiar tendrils of suspicion inch up my spine. Maybe they want you to leave, play a game, Sam suggested, his eyes glinting with an idea that flickered like a distant flame. It could be a trap, but if we don't know who's behind this, we can't arm ourselves against it. The whispering grew more intense, the inflection of the voice dripping with malice-tinged curiosity. You'd turn against your father? What will that make you, I wonder? As the taunts twisted around my mind, I felt something change. The realization that I could either accept this as my legacy or stand against it became the catalyst for my next choice. The path he chose is not mine, I said, my words stronger than I felt. I'm not afraid of what he's done. Good, Sam said, determination filling the space. Then we use what we know to stop it. If it means going against your father, well, do it together. But just as courageous thoughts began to bloom, the footsteps resumed, louder, more frantic, as an unwelcoming presence drew closer. They'll never accept you as you are. You'll always be tainted by his name, the voice echoed, casting shadows over the flickering light of our hope. With a shared glance, we took a collective breath. How could we fight an invisible enemy? The truth felt vulnerable, as if it were interlaced with our fears and every painful secret we carried. And as the darkness began to crowd around us once more, panic rippled through me. Then, to our horror, a blinding light pierced through the shadows, catching the glint of metal aimed directly toward us. Instinct took over as we bolted from our hiding place, but the beam followed us like an impending storm. That a sharp command rang out, "Stop." In that instant, the walls of my world caved in, and the binding threads of trust began to unravel, as chaos erupted around us. The eyed enemy had found us, and as we turned to fight, my mind raced back to my father's name on that page. If the truth could break us, was it really worth saving? As the first shout of struggle sounded through the air, I made one last desperate plea in my heart: help us. We need something beyond ourselves to fight back. And in that plea, I felt the tremors of an unseen ally awaken, a splinter of hope igniting amid the chaos, unabated but fragile. But whether it would be enough to face the storm remained a haunting uncertainty, throbbing like the drum of my heart. The real truth was lurking just beyond the edge of our reality, waiting for the moment to shatter everything we thought we knew. As the light flickered precariously, casting jerky shadows against the old stone walls, dread seized my heart. It wasn't just the suddenness of the voice that struck fear in me, but the threatening familiarity of the situation. The embarrassment of my family's legacy pulsed through my veins, and my breath quickened as I grasped the weight of our predicament. Move! Sam yelled, pulling us into another narrow passage, deeper into the unknown. The metallic clang of something heavy being dropped filled the hall behind us. It echoed like a clock striking midnight. With it came a sense of urgency that sent my pulse racing, forcing me to fight back feelings of despair. Pressed against the damp wall, I turned to face Marley and Jess, fear reflected in their wide eyes. We can't let them take us, I murmured, regretting the hint of tremor in my voice. It was a rallying cry that felt false against the turmoil welling inside me. What if they know about my dad? Then we'll use that, Jess said fiercely, her fingers brushing my wrist. Your dad might have done terrible things, but we are not him. We can solve this. Together. For how long? I whispered back, feeling our fragile fortress of solidarity crack under the weight of my doubt. We're being hunted because of who my father is. What if their darkness is contagious? Stop thinking like that, Marley said sharply, and I looked into her determined eyes. You're not your father. You have the chance to rewrite your story. Don't give in to the shadows they want to cast upon you. That I wanted to believe her, to let those words anchor me, but every flicker of hope felt like a betrayal of the truth I had wrestled with for too long. I took a deep breath, silencing the dark whispers of doubt, if only for a moment, and moved forward with renewed purpose. Suddenly, we heard the clang of footsteps rushing down the corridor behind us, closer, more organized. Quick! This way! Sam urged, his voice cutting through the desperation that I followed instinctively, propelled not just by fear, but also by the faint glimmer of what could be a future untainted by lineage. We slid into another dark alcove just as shadows streamed past us. I held my breath, praying for safety, but within the tension, my thoughts spiraled and resurfaced like tumultuous waves battling against the rocks. How did we end up here? All my life, I had been chasing a semblance of normalcy, only to discover the history I was entangled in was a labyrinth of deception. I could hear my father's voice echoing in my mind, cynical, secretive, dismissive of my feelings. "Do you think they can trace his actions back to you?" Sam whispered, breaking the silence, his breath visible in the cold air. "If they know he's involved." I felt an uneasy knot in my stomach. "If they know about his actions, do they care? Or will they see me as a pawn in his game?" An eerie silence followed until Jess whispered back, "Then we make sure they realize we are more than just pawns. We won't let them define our worth." Tension built around us, a noxious mix of fear, regret, and courage contorting into an emotional maelstrom. "But what if my father?" I began again, struggling to voice the spiraling doubt tethered to his growing shadow. "Your father is not our enemy," Marley interrupted gently. "He's just a man," and this she gestured to the shadows encroaching around us. "This is more significant than any one individual. We need to expose the truth." Even as the conviction swirled in the room, a crack of uncertainty lingered in my heart. What truth? Whose truth? I felt my fingers tremble, the burden of expectation suffocating. It felt markedly unfair. Could I carry the weight of discovery alone? Suddenly, a door creaked nearby. The sharp sound split the air like an accusation, and my mind churned endlessly at the edges of despair. The voice returned, echoing with an ominous familiarity. "You possess a legacy unlike any other one that can both uplift and destroy. Why hide?" I shook my head, pushing against the penetrating darkness suffocating my resolve. "Stop. Stop talking," but it was too late. The words slithered into the crevices of my mind. Each syllable felt like a weapon aimed directly at my insecurities, turning my self-despair into a fraying rope unraveling within me. "Let's move," Sam urged, breaking the moment. We darted forward, fueled by an urgency I couldn't shake. But just as we passed through the broken doorway, the beam of light caught up with us like hungry jaws snapping at our heels. Then, in a startling twist, the shadows surrendered the form of a figure standing before us. A breath caught in my throat as I recognized the face of an old acquaintance, someone I hadn't seen in years. All thoughts fled my mind, replaced by a truth I never expected. "Dad." I breathed as the darkness folded back to reveal my father, standing there in stark contrast to everything I believed. He looked at me, a mixture of recognition and something deeper swimming in his eyes. "Help me," he said, but I heard the hesitation laced in his tone, and in that moment, the complicity of dense emotions collided within. Would his truth save us or doom us? The clash within my heart crescendoed, and I stumbled backward, grappling with the unveiled reality before me, as the earthquake of confusion and revelation threatened to consume me, leaving me teetering on the edge of choices that could change everything. The light seemed to freeze in the air, casting shadows that danced menacingly at my feet. My mind raced through memories of the man I had known, the man I had chosen to shut out from my life because of what he represented. There stood my father, an entity both familiar and foreign, wrapped in the chaos of our histories. "Help me," he repeated, but his voice sounded fragile, a plea that clashed against the backdrop of our estrangement. The urgency around us faded momentarily as I grappled with my own tumultuous emotions. What did he need help with? His return was a haunting echo of all the childhood dreams I had buried alongside my disdain. Would helping him mean allowing his darkness to seep back into my life? Get away from him. Sam shouted, every ounce of courage and fury directed at this man who had failed me for so long. The fierceness in his voice brought me back to the terrifying present where danger loomed just behind us.no. Wait. I instinctively grabbed Sam's arm, my heart racing not just with fear against my father's return but with a flicker of an old, dormant hope. I wanted to believe that perhaps my father had changed, that perhaps there was more to the man behind the legacy I despised. Please, I said to Sam, my voice trembling. Give him a chance. A moment stretched long before Sam released a heavy sigh of frustration. His eyes searched mine, reading my desperation, my uncertainty. Fiona, we can't trust him. He could be leading us into a trap. Maybe, I conceded, feeling the weight of my past memories suffocate me. But what if it's not what it seems? What if he can help us uncover the truth? I don't think you know what you're asking for, he pressed, his voice softer now but laced with concern. You're risking everything, our lives. The shadows behind us are waiting to take us back down, then let me talk to him. My plea hung in the air, stark against the reality we faced. I turned my gaze to my father, grounding myself against the torrent of conflicting feelings that eddied within me. He met my eyes with a mixture of hope and sorrow, a reflection of my own turmoil. Please, Fiona, he urged, stepping forward. The gesture felt both fragile and daring, as if he was inviting me to unravel years of pain. I've been trying to protect you from the consequences of my actions and from those who seek to use our legacy against us. Let me explain that as the shadows crept closer, I felt the tremor of uncertainty pulse through my body. Could this be a chance for redemption? I took a shaky breath, stepping toward him hesitantly, my heart thudding a lonely rhythm against the desperate silence, but before I could speak, the door behind us burst open, casting a wash of light into our alcove. Heavy footsteps pounded across the floor, crashing against the walls like waves against rocks. They're sending more. Jess cried out, panic flashing across her face. Go! Sam shouted. We can't stay here, a part of me screamed to flee, to escape the potential betrayal weaving intricate binds of instability around us, yet a deeper yearning to understand thrived. My gaze darted from my father to the flight ahead, caught in the snare of possible futures colliding right in front of me. Fiona, you have to trust me. My father pressed, desperation lining his features, igniting something long buried within my soul. I can help you expose the truth before it's too late. We're not enemies, we're fighting the same battle, but trust was not something I could easily give, knowing how easily it could shatter. Just as I opened my mouth to voice my inner conflict, an arm slipped around my waist, pulling me away from my father and into the blinding light of uncertainty and danger. Fiona, let's go. Jess called, dragging me toward the passage that promised safety but pulled me further from my father's reach. We need to leave. Tension surged, my heart a battlefield of conflicting forces. I glanced back at my father, who stood rooted in place, anguish etched in every line of his face. Was this the moment of reunion I had craved, or the precipice of my undoing? As we sprinted down the corridor, I felt a sharp pang of longing for the possibility of a truth I hadn't dared to hope for. Just as the shadows began to swallow my vision, I heard him shout after me. Don't forget this moment. It's your choice, and with that, the world imploded into darkness, pulling me away from everything I believed, leaving me suspended between despair and the faintest light of hope, a hope that felt like a knife in my heart, sharp and relentless. My choices had just begun to ripple through the fabric of our intertwined fates, and as the reality of my father's existence loomed over me like a storm, I realized that the real truth was only just beginning to unravel. The darkness enveloped me, suffocating in its silence as I stumbled through the corridor, Jess's grip a lifeline amid the chaos. Every step felt like I was running away from a heavy weight in my chest that hummed with unease and unanswered questions. My father's voice echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the possibility I had just relinquished. Don't forget this moment. It's your choice. The words lingered, clinging like shadows to my thoughts. What did he truly mean? Was this a chance for reconciliation or an opening for betrayal? Each breath I took felt heavy, bathed in the uncertainty that tugged at my soul. That we burst out into the hallway, the sterile fluorescent lights flickering overhead, weaving harsh shadows across our faces. The panic from earlier flooded my senses anew, the urgency palpable as we hurried toward the nearest exit. Up ahead. Sam pointed, eyes trained forward, filled with determination. I could see a door marked with a glowing emergency sign, a beacon of hope amid the chaos, yet, within me, hope had become a double-edged sword, cutting deeper with each beat of my heart. That we have to keep moving. Jess urged, her voice laced with fear and adrenaline. But as the door came within reach, an unsettling thought crept over me. What lay on the other side? Outside, the world was a tempest, and I was stuck inside, trying to navigate my emotions while escaping an unseen terror. The door crashed open just as we reached it. Outside, I caught a glimpse of the chaos unfurling in front of me. People were running, shouts blending with the wailing of sirens. I stepped onto the pavement, disoriented by the sudden shift in atmosphere. The reality of our situation hit me like a tidal wave, dragging me into the surf where the line between safety and danger blurred dangerously. "Fiona, focus." Sam's voice pierced through the noise, jolting me back. I glanced at him, and for a fleeting moment, I imagined the warmth of a life untouched by the shadows of my father's legacy. A life where love wasn't entangled in betrayal and the past didn't dictate our future. That we dashed across the street, weaving in and out of onlookers paralyzed by confusion and fear. I could feel an energy shift around us. Restless anxiety thrummed beneath the surface. It wasn't just the fallout from the chaos, it was something deeper, a sense of impending doom that seemed to envelop me, whispering promises of devastation. Then an unexpected gesture caught my eye. In the midst of the chaos, a stranger, an elderly woman with kind eyes, looked directly at me. She reached out, grasping a wristlet with a tiny card. "Here, take this. It might help you," she called out, her voice barely audible over the din. I hesitated, instinctively taking a step back, but then something inside drove me forward. Maybe it was faith in humanity, maybe it was desperation. I snatched the card just as Jess tugged me away, the thin paper a transient weight in my pocket. That we continued to sprint, the streetlights blurring into streaks of luminescence against the twilight sky. "We need to find shelter," Sam yelled. The panic simmered in his tone, but beneath that, there was an undercurrent of determination, a promise of safety even in the face of calamity. We ran toward an alley, seeking refuge from the chaos, my heart hammering against the uncertain rhythm of our flight. As we ducked behind a dumpster, the shadows of the alley offered momentary protection. I felt Jess' fingers tighten around my arm, her breath quickening as she pressed her back against the wall. "What do we do now?" The question hung heavy, weighted by the gravity of our choices. That I pulled out the card, its surface glistening in the sparse light. It was a simple white piece with a single line of text: "If you're in danger, find the truth beneath the ocean." Confusion washed over me, a riddle in the storm of urgency. What could that possibly mean? Was it code? A misplaced joke? "Fiona?" Sam's voice broke my reverie, dragging me back. "What's that?" I don't know." I turned the card over as if searching for an answer on the other side. But instead of clarity, my fingers brushed against a familiar emblem, a sea creature, torn from a memory I desperately wanted to forget. My father's influence swelled unexpectedly within me, dark tendrils wrapping around my thoughts. The ocean, it's got to do with SeaWorld. He must be involved somehow. The realization hit like a wave crashing against the shore. My father's connection to all of this stretched deeper than I could fathom. "We need to unravel this," I murmured, the undercurrent of determination rising within me. But just as I said those words, a loud crash resonated from the alley's entrance, footsteps echoing ominously as figures emerged from the shadows. I could feel Sam tense beside me, his breath caught in his throat. With urgency spilling into panic, I turned to face the looming danger, barely prepared for what was to come. "Run!" Sam shouted, urgency vibrating through me like a live wire. I had no choice now but to face the tempest head-on, my heart racing as I surged forward. The truths waiting to unfurl were no longer just about my past but tied to something far larger, a revelation waiting to be unearthed, even amid the chaos of collapse. And then I heard a faint but unmistakable sound of waves crashing, reverberating in the distance like an echo from the ocean, calling me back home, back to the truth I hadn't realized I was seeking. But what awaited me there, beneath its shimmering surface? The answer stirred a sense of foreboding, as uncertainty laced my every thought once more. Running through the back alleys, every breath felt like a decision. My mom's face flashed through my mind, and the worry etched in her features filled me with guilt and dread. The reality of my father's potential involvement in whatever darkness was unfolding held me captive, the weight of who I was colliding with, who I wanted to be. "Where to?" Jess called as we raced from shadow to shadow, with Sam leading the way. He glanced back at us, his expression taut. "Toward the docks," he replied, urgency coating his voice. "If your father has connections there, maybe we can find some answers. The sea loomed in the distance, its waves crashing in steady rhythm, each sound a reminder of the storm gathering within me. I could feel the buried tumult, a blend of anger, betrayal, and an unwavering resolve. The ocean had been a symbol of freedom, yet now it felt like an embodiment of the very chains binding me to my past. As we emerged onto a dimly lit side street, the salty air filled my lungs, mixing with the adrenaline coursing through my veins. But my mind flickered back, grasping at the card from the old woman. If you're in danger, find the truth beneath the ocean. What could it mean? The puzzle twisted in my thoughts until it felt like a noose, tightening the deeper I delved. The rustle of footsteps behind us made us quicken our pace. We turned the corner into a narrow alley by the docks, where shadows draped over the pavement like thick blankets. I glanced back, but we were momentarily free from pursuit. What's the plan? Jess pressed, glancing over her shoulder, her voice taut like violin strings. But there was now an unyielding strength in her eyes that hadn't been there before. We find that truth, I stated, igniting an inner flame of courage. The truth beneath the ocean. It has to mean something, Fiona. Sam's voice cut through. What if this is all to distract you? What if you're walking right into a trap because of your father? I felt a surge of conflict swirl inside, but it transformed into a steely resolve. I need to confront him. I need to understand. Not just about him, but about the truth everyone's afraid of. As we neared the edge of the docks, the sound of water thrumming against the boats resonated in my chest, like a heartbeat echoing the turmoil within me. It felt hauntingly familiar, as if the ocean was reaching out, begging me to unwrap the layers of secrets it held. There it was, a small, weathered boat bobbed in the muted light, tethered at the end of the dock, seemingly awaiting us. My heart raced, matching the rhythm of the waves. What did you find? Sam asked again, the determination in his gaze unwavering. That I pulled the card from my pocket, revealing the etched emblem of the sea creature again. This symbol, it's linked to more than just my father. There has to be something they've hidden there. Maybe it's tied to everything that's been happening. And then I saw a figure standing at the edge of the dock, silhouetted against the water. My pulse quickened, watching the silhouette turn. A familiar face emerged from the shadows. My father. Don't. Jess gasped, gripping my arm, but something in my heart propelled me forward, despite the anxiety curling in my stomach. I felt like a moth drawn to a flame. Stay back. Sam urged, but I took a step closer, unable to halt the magnetic pull that sought connection. Dad, I called out, my voice trembling as I took a bold step closer. What do you want from us? He stepped into the light, revealing his weary face that wore years of regret and resilience. I didn't want this for you, any of this. I came here to warn you. They are coming for you. They know you're looking for the truth. What truth? I spat, confusion and betrayal clawing at my voice. What have you done? I've made mistakes, terrible mistakes, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I thought I could protect you by keeping you away from it all. But you need to understand, Fiona. There is a bigger game being played. You have to expose this before it takes you to. As I stood there, swallowed by uncertainty, the waves crashed against the dock, a heartbeat of their own, pulling me deeper into the moment. I don't know if I can trust you. My voice wavered, each word infused with doubt. His gaze bore into mine, filled with remorse. You don't have to trust me, but you have to trust your own instincts. The ocean holds evident secrets of what's been done to those creatures, of the power struggles that have gone unchecked. You are meant to find it. Everything halted as his words sank in a thunderous realization that echoed beneath the surface. The ocean, I breathed, the crux of my father's secret melding with my purpose. Listen, he continued urgently, urgency threading his voice. They're watching. You need to dig beneath the surface, find those documents, those images. They're buried at the old aquarium. They'll detail how they've manipulated everything for profit. This is your chance to tell the real story. An explosion of anger and hurt surged through my ears, of silence, betrayal, dread, all simmering to a point. You expect me to believe you now? After everything? After leaving me? I didn't leave you, I was trying to protect you. His voice broke, reverberating with sincerity. This fight isn't just mine. It's now yours. And you have the opportunity to rewrite everything that I in that moment, everything crystallized. It wasn't just questions about my father, it was about understanding what had shaped my essence. Joining undertones of fear and power congealed into a commitment to justice not just for the animals sacrificed, but breaking the chains of legacy that linked me to betrayal, but time hadn't stopped its relentless march. "We need to move," Jess exclaimed, inching closer, pulling me from my thoughts. "They'll come." The grip of urgency tightened around us as I turned to my father, making my choice clear. "Well, expose them. Together. But this is your chance to own up to everything. You're not leading me anymore. It's my fight now." His face softened, pride and surrender battling within his features. "Then let me help you." Suddenly a flash of lights illuminated the dock. The figures were moving in closer, figures I recognized from the shadows. "Run!" Sam shouted, spurring into action. The truth surged through me, propelling me forward as we sprinted for the boat. This journey was far from over. Each step pulsed with determination as the water whipped against our Wakami father at my side, and something deeper blossomed within me. We were on the edge of uncovering the darkness tangled within our realities, and as the night faded behind us, I could finally feel hope crashing like waves at my feet, truth rising to greet us like the dawn, and as we slipped away, into the depths of the unknown, I whispered with a fierce certainty, "Nothing will silence us now." Because sometimes, emerging from the shadows is the first step in reclaiming your own light.